Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 34 female, divorced my ex-husband, Tom, 35 male, 2 years ago, after years of heartbreak and betrayal. The decision to leave wasn't easy, especially because we have 2 kids together, Ella, 8 female, and Lucas, 6 male. But it became clear that I had to put my self-respect and my children's well-being above all else. Tom was a serial cheater, and I couldn't let my kids grow up thinking that kind of behavior was acceptable. Since the divorce, I've worked hard to maintain a civil co-parenting relationship for the sake of our children. I invite Tom to family events like birthdays, Christmas, and other holidays so that Ella and Lucas can see their parents getting along. It's not always easy, but I've made it work until this past Thanksgiving. Let me take you back to the beginning. Tom and I met when we were just 17. We were young, naive, and madly in love. He had this charm about him that made it impossible not to fall for him. He was funny, ambitious, and incredibly charismatic. At 22, we got married. We were young, but we were optimistic about our future. We didn't have much, just a small apartment and dreams, but we were happy. A couple of years into our marriage, we had Ella, and 2 years after that, Lucas was born. I was thrilled to become a mom. Life became hectic with 2 young kids, but I embraced the chaos. I thought Tom did too. He seemed like a loving father, always doting on the kids and making time for them. But cracks in our marriage began to show not long after Lucas was born. The first time I discovered Tom had cheated, Lucas was just a baby. I found a suspicious text on his phone late one night, and when I confronted him, he admitted to having an affair. He swore it was a mistake and promised it would never happen again. I was devastated, but wanted to believe him. I told myself it was a one-time lapse of judgment, that we could work through it for the sake of our family. I agreed to couples therapy, and for a while, things seemed to get better. But it wasn't long before I found out about another affair, then another, and another. Sometimes he confessed when he got caught. Other times, I found out through mutual friends or social media. Each time he begged for forgiveness, swearing it would never happen again. And each time I forgave him, hoping he would change. But after years of broken promises and mounting resentment, I realized I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't want Ella and Lucas growing up thinking it was okay to treat your partner like that, or to accept being treated that way. So I filed for divorce. The divorce was messy, but I tried my best to shield the kids from the worst of it. I wanted them to have a healthy relationship with their dad, even if our marriage had failed. Since then, I've made an effort to include Tom in family events so the kids could see their parents getting along. I invited him to birthday parties, Christmas dinners, and other milestones. I thought it was the right thing to do. This year, I decided to host Thanksgiving at my house. It was my turn to have the kids, and I wanted to create a warm, festive atmosphere for them. As usual, I extended an invitation to Tom. He mentioned he might bring his new girlfriend, but he didn't give me any details about her. I didn't think much of it. He's had a string of girlfriends since the divorce, and I've learned to stay out of his personal life. My only concern was that she be kind to Ella and Lucas. Thanksgiving morning was chaotic, as it always is when you're hosting. I was running around, cooking the turkey, preparing side dishes, and trying to keep the kids occupied. Around noon, Tom arrived, with his girlfriend in tow. When I opened the door and saw her, my jaw nearly hit the floor. His girlfriend, Jess, 26 female, works at my office. Not only do I know her, but so does almost everyone else at the company, because Jess has a reputation. Jess is known for sleeping with our boss, Mr. Turner. It's not just office gossip, it's practically common knowledge. She's been spotted leaving his office at odd hours, going on business trips with him, and showing up at work events wearing expensive jewelry that people assume he bought her. It's been the subject of jokes and whispers for months. Seeing her standing in my living room, holding hands with Tom, was surreal. I thought, oh my God, did I just see karma coming after Tom? At first, I didn't know what to do. I tried to focus on hosting and making sure the kids were having a good time, but I couldn't stop thinking about how this was going to blow up in Tom's face. Did he know about Jess's reputation? Was he aware of what he was getting himself into? Part of me felt it wasn't my place to get involved, but another part of me felt like I would want to know if the roles were reversed. I decided to pull Tom aside for a private conversation. I didn't want to embarrass him or cause a scene in front of the kids. I took him into the kitchen and said, "Do you know who Jess is?" He looked confused, so I elaborated. "She works in my office. Everyone knows she's sleeping with our boss." Tom's face turned red, not with embarrassment, but with anger. He accused me of being jealous and trying to ruin his relationship. He said I couldn't handle seeing him happy and that I was bitter because he'd moved on. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to sabotage anything, but he wouldn't listen. He stormed back into the dining room, told Jess they were leaving, and walked out. The kids were confused, my family was stunned, and I was left standing there, wondering if I'd made a huge mistake. Since Thanksgiving, Tom has been furious with me. He's accused me of ruining the holiday, being petty, full of revenge, and trying to sabotage his happiness. He even told Ella and Lucas that Mom doesn't like Jess, which has made things even more complicated. Meanwhile, Jess hasn't been back to the office yet, but I'm dreading the next time I see her. I know she'll have heard about what happened, and the tension is going to be unbearable. I keep replaying the situation in my head, wondering if I should have just kept my mouth shut. Was it really my place to say anything? On one hand, I feel like I was looking out for Tom. Even after everything he's done, he's still the father of my children. On the other hand, maybe I should have just let him find out on his own. From my perspective, I was trying to do the right thing. Tom has hurt me deeply in the past, but I've always tried to rise above it for the sake of our kids. I didn't say anything to Jess in front of anyone else, and I didn't raise my voice or cause a scene. I thought I was giving him a heads up about something that could potentially hurt him in the long run. But now I'm questioning myself. Should I have just stayed out of it? So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for pulling Tom aside during Thanksgiving and telling him about Jess's reputation? First of all, OP handled this way more gracefully than most people would have. OP pulled him aside privately, told him something OP felt he needed to know, and left it at that. If he chose to blow up, storm out, and make it awkward, that's on him. OP didn't ruin Thanksgiving. He did. Honestly, it sounds like he's projecting his insecurities onto OP. Also, the fact that Jess hasn't shown her face at work since the holiday makes me think there's truth to what OP said, and now they're scrambling. OP did the right thing by warning him, even if he refuses to see it. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Wow, not the a-hole. Your ex sounds like a piece of work. After everything he put you through, you're still co-parenting, inviting him to holidays, and trying to keep the peace for the sake of your kids. And this is how he repays you? By bringing his new girlfriend, who just so happens to have a shady reputation in your workplace, into your home? Honestly, I think you were doing him a favor by pulling him aside and telling him the truth. If he can't handle hearing it, that's his problem, not yours. Don't let him make you feel guilty for protecting your family environment. Not the a-hole at all. You had every right to set boundaries in your home, and you handled the situation as tactfully as possible. The fact that he turned it into a drama fest says more about him than you. He accused you of being jealous, but honestly, it sounds like he was looking for an excuse to paint himself as the victim. Let's not forget that you've gone out of your way to include him in family events for the sake of your kids, despite his history of disrespecting your marriage. He should be thanking you for being so gracious, not throwing tantrums because you pointed out the obvious. Honestly, this sounds like a case of don't shoot the messenger, not the a-hole. You didn't call her out in front of everyone, you didn't create a scene, and you told him because you thought he should know. How he chose to react says everything about him. Also, let's not ignore the fact that he brought someone with a questionable reputation into your home, in front of your kids, without giving you a heads up. That alone is disrespectful. It's not your fault he got embarrassed. It's his fault for refusing to listen. Stand your ground, and don't let him manipulate you into thinking you're the bad guy here. I, 31 female, and my partner, 42 male, have lived together for about a year and have been dating for several years. We each have a child from a previous marriage, and I am pregnant with our child. We each share custody of our kids with our ex-spouses and share duties with them. His ex-wife decided upon hearing of my existence that I had a bad influence on her son, 12, and spent the larger part of 3 months calling my partner crying about how he abandoned her. They split 10 years ago, and she is remarried with 3 young children. She proceeded to say terrible things about me without having met me and telling him not to be with me. She has never apologized or even tried to talk to me, despite my being present and available. But he says this was 3 months ago, so I should forgive her and get over it, because she is fine now, and she hasn't yelled at him recently. They have co-parented pretty well despite her taking advantage of him and trying to baby him for as long as I've known him. She was living about 30 miles away from us, so my partner and I took turns driving their son to and from school. She helped out a lot on the weeks when we had custody because she was very close to the school, and we worked and lived further away. Now the ex has moved closer to us, and we all live within about 10 minutes of each other, which is great. But the ex has decided that this is the perfect opportunity to be around as much as possible. She finds any excuse to drop off, pick up things from our house, pack her son lunch on our custody days and drop it off. She shows up to his school and sees her son before and after school each day, and at every extracurricular activity. She calls my ex literally every day, sometimes multiple times per day, and texts sometimes all day. She also texts her son all day and calls him several times per day when he is with us. She asks her son if she can come over and drop off things for him, and he says yes, so she just comes by and parks in front of the house. Whenever I bring up my concern about feeling like our space is invaded and that she doesn't respect our space, he gets upset with me for not thinking positively and giving everyone a second chance. I have explained to my partner that I am the mom in this house and that we can care for the children without her on our custodial days, and he agrees that she is overbearing, but refuses to set hard boundaries, claiming that it is just an old habit for them to talk all the time. I also recently found out he is deleting text messages and call records between them, and that he has lied about how often he sees her. Turns out, it is almost every day. When he needs help with the kids on our custody days, he is calling her instead of me, even if I am closer, and then goes to her house. Edit. I gave him 1 week to set some boundaries with his ex and show me that he is on my team and part of this family. He is also going to figure out how to contribute financially toward our lives, because I've been paying for everything, except his car payment and gas, while he reaps the benefits of having 2 women to take care of his kids and no bills. So, am I the a-hole for wanting some boundaries in my own home between my partner and his ex-wife? He is deleting messages from her? They're getting back together. Get your ducks in a row for your custody battle, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole, but OP, you do not have an ex problem. You have a husband problem. Your husband is actively undermining you and your relationship with both him and his child. What you have now in terms of a life with him is how it will be forever. He refuses to see what he is doing is wrong, tells you that you are in the wrong, and actively hides his activities on a daily basis. He is cheating on you. Even if it's not physical in terms of sex, it is physical in terms of he is actually physically in her presence every day. Do not let this be your life, as it will destroy your self-confidence and you emotionally. If he will not do couples counseling, go to counseling, therapy yourself to work on yourself and leave him. He has already made his choice. Not the a-hole, your partner is. I'd be suspicious that there was more going on between them. What you are asking for is reasonable boundaries, and he's brushing you off and trying to make it out to be not an issue, despite the fact that it is. I'd honestly be pushing harder, especially with the way he's more or less disregarded your role in the family, and he's deferring to his ex for these things now. It's one thing for him to defer to his ex from time to ask for help with the kids, particularly if you aren't immediately available. It's another to be seeing her every day, calling and texting her every day, and sneakily deleting things, having her constantly be all up in your space. I'd be suspicious as hell if my partner was doing that with their ex. I'm a single mom of 4, who are 27 male, 21 male, 18 male, and 16 female. Their dad passed away when the youngest was 1, and raising them all alone has been very difficult. The 3 youngest still live with me as they are all either in high school or college. When my oldest was 18, he had a child with his girlfriend. His girlfriend wanted to give her up for adoption, but my son convinced her not to do it and let him raise the child instead. I told him I have enough kids already. I'm not raising another one because really, who's going to end up taking care of the child when he is going to college? I told him to either let his girlfriend give up the baby or move out of my home because I'm not going to help him at all. I have enough kids already. He chose to keep the baby and move out. I didn't hear from him for years after that, but he kept in touch with the rest of the children, and they told me he's very upset. A few days ago, my youngest son came and wanted to talk to me. He said that my oldest is going through a hard time and needs a place to stay and asked if he could invite him to stay with us for some time. I decided to let him stay with us as he seemed to be out of options. They moved in with us 2 days ago, and my son and I have been talking and trying to fix things. However, I'm very bothered by his daughter's behavior. Yesterday, she was sitting in the living room and playing with her phone. I tried to start a conversation with her by asking how old she is. I already know how old she is, obviously. I was just trying to talk to her. She didn't answer. I asked again, no answer. After the third time, my daughter took out the kid's AirPods and told her I'm talking to her. I repeated my question, and she rolled her eyes and said I could have asked someone else because everyone here knows her age. I told her I was trying to talk to her, and she said, I know, she was trying not to. I told her this is no way to talk to your grandmother, and she rolled her eyes again. This is when I decided I've had enough. I told her to go to her room and not to get out until she apologizes. She decided not to apologize and missed dinner. When my son came home, he went to his room and then angrily came back and asked us why his daughter was not given anything to eat. I told him the story, but he kept yelling at me saying I had no right to punish his child like that. He kept calling me an a-hole and other names. I tried to calm him down, but he wouldn't stop yelling and said they'll move out in the morning. I think he was overreacting, but all my children are on his side, so I wonder if I was the a-hole in this situation. You're the a-hole. This kid does not know you. She's in an uncomfortable situation, surrounded by basically strangers, and rather than meeting her where she is, you've decided that you should punish her for that. Also, withholding food should never be a punishment, and your son rightfully was upset by this. You don't have the right to punish a child that isn't yours without the consent and understanding from the parent. And I suspect you've just put another nail in the coffin for your relationship with your son. You decided not to be a part of the child's life and have opted back in. The child does not know you, and now is in a difficult position, living with someone who did not want her. She knows you were an absent grandma. This is the issue with drawing lines and then reconsidering. The child needs time to accept you. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. The kid doesn't know you. You're burning bridges before you can even build them. You played no part in her life but feel the need to punish or discipline her for rolling her eyes at you? You can do better, both as a so-called grandmother and adult. You're not involved in her life, and you certainly could have handled it better. You should not have withheld food from her. That's awful. So me, 41 male, and my ex, 42 female, have been divorced for 10 years now. We had 2 kids together, now 12 female and 16 male, and we are both remarried. I have 2 more kids, 6 female and 7 female, with my current wife, 36 female. When my ex married her now husband, she decided to leave the country and settle down in Spain due to job opportunities for both her and her husband. About 6 years ago now. Due to this, I got primary custody of our kids, and while she has flown back a few times over the years to see them, she is fairly absent in their lives and hasn't seen them in person since late 2018. Edit. She has video called them in this time, but hasn't physically come to see them since then. Last year, both my late grandparents died. Me and my older sister got inheritance since our grandparents' only child, our dad, had already passed. It was a substantial amount, and we are very grateful for it, because until that point, me and my wife had been struggling with 4 kids and work issues. Since then, we sold our house, was not big enough, tiny rooms and the kids shared rooms, and bought a larger one. I paid off my debt, my wife bought a car. I was the only one that had a car before this. On top of that, we've put money away for all our kids' education and stuff, put some aside for Christmas, and had enough left over for a family vacation for the end of the school year. Again, for us, it was life-changing. We had decided since none of our kids had been out of country, we wanted to include them in the vacation planning, like picking a destination and such. Well, after some deliberation, we decided on Italy. We would be moving around Italy to different locations, but it had a bit of everything. Well, my eldest daughter's birthday came around, and she got a call from her mom. Well, during this convo, she mentioned that we were going as a family to Italy next year. At the end of the phone call, she asked my daughter to give me the phone. She was really angry and upset that I wasn't bringing the kids to Spain so she could see them. She was also upset that she didn't get any say in where the kids would be spending a large chunk of their time. She also didn't like that we would be taking the kids to a ski slope, since she thinks now sports are really dangerous. But that is a must-have for us since my son snowboards and my middle daughter wants to learn to ski. I told her that this was my money and she wasn't contributing, so she didn't get a say. She started crying and saying I was punishing her for not being able to treat the kids like me and my wife could. She then was mad again that I didn't suggest or push for Spain. I feel like maybe I'm the a-hole for not even suggesting Spain, But my kids know that their mom lives there, and they never brought it up on the list of places they wanted to go. So I'm not sure. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. She hasn't cared enough to come see the kids herself since 2018? Your kids picked Italy, not Spain, so I don't think they are caring much about seeing her either. Why is she griping? She could at least request to come to Italy since it's not as bad as coming overseas and getting to see them for a little while. Tell her that if she wants to see the kids, it's on her to make the effort because she is the one who moved away. She can pay to fly them to see her if it's that freaking critical to her. Not the a-hole. Those kids know which parent left them and which one stayed. They also know that this is a family vacation, not a go-visit mom trip. If she wants to see them so bad, she can travel to Italy to meet up with you guys. Why do you have to put in all the effort for her sake? Not the a-hole. She moved to Spain. You asked the kids where they wanted to go. Not your problem they didn't pick Spain. My wife recently asked me for permission to take a few $1,000s, about 80%, from our joint account to pay for agency fee to hire a new maid to take care of her bedridden father. I agreed, as she mentioned that she has a bonus coming in which could partially replenish the amount. However, she informed me afterward that the bonus is not guaranteed. This is stressing me out, as I have already planned out how the joint account savings will be spent to pay for our debts and bills for the rest of the year. This is not the first time she's used money from our account, and she usually replenishes back the money, but this is the largest amount she ever took. Before anyone jumps to condemn me for my apparent heartlessness, please know that despite our combined income being on higher middle side, with my wife earning double what I earned, she contributed only a few $100s more than me to the joint account. The rest of her income goes to support her parents' family. Thus, our joint account savings just barely covers our monthly expenses, and any surplus available are only a few $100s at best. This surplus are usually reserved for property tax, car insurance, and other miscellaneous annual lump sum payments. I'm paying most of the time for the petrol of our sedan car, and for food and entertainment when we bring our children out. I also sometimes packed food for my in-laws at my own expense when visiting them. I avoided claiming money from joint account for common item spending such as groceries and even road tax. Anytime I get a bonus, I will try to pump in extra money to the joint account. I tried to be frugal on my own personal spending with most of my account lunch at around $5 to $6, despite working near CBD. It took a lot of effort and planning for me to save up the few $1,000s. My wife has two elder brothers, one who is single and jobless, and now just hangs around the house to help take care of the father. He spends hundreds of dollars on lottery each month, despite having no income. The older brother, who is married, just became the boss of a small business, wears branded clothing and footwear, paid for his daughter to go to concerts and his son to take up fitness, drives a large 8-seater car, yet other than monthly allowance to his parents, does not seem to contribute to any other extra spending such as the maid agency fee. This is causing me to develop a sense of resentment of them. All of the above, plus the uncertainty of whether the money will be replenished in time to pay the bills, is stressing me out. I'm having problems falling asleep at night. Talking to my wife is not an option, as she is rather protective of her parents and family, and she gets upset and stresses when I try to talk to her about our finances. Refusing her request will stress her, as she needs to come up with the money herself. I'm feeling a sense of hopelessness and not sure how I can continue like this. So, am I the a-hole for being upset? Not the a-hole. Money is an obvious source of stress, and it sounds like your wife doesn't have good boundaries with her family. Of course you're upset. Not the a-hole. Your wife needs to ask her brothers to help out more. If her single and jobless brother stops spending money on the lottery every month, and her married brother cuts down on branded clothing and footwear, then your wife and her brothers can support their parents with the maid agency fee. It shouldn't be just yours and your wife's responsibility to help your father-in-law. Not the a-hole. I don't have a solution, except to maybe suggest talking to a financial planner. I don't really think you can do anything about this situation, as you already agreed to give them the money. Perhaps going forward the answer should be to say no and explain why. I've been in your wife's shoes where you feel you need to give your parents money, or are giving them money. Neither of my parents planned for their retirement, and have next to nothing. For what it's worth, I think a lot of people are just scraping by. Sounds like you are doing your best to be financially responsible. Cut yourself some slack if a bill doesn't get paid right when it's due.